The sky above the desert shimmered with heat. Captain Dax Morin, ex-military current, nobody, wiped the sweat off his brow and stared at the jagged smoking trail across the horizon. Something had crashed, and it wasn't human. He pulled his beat-up rover into gear and followed the plume of dust. Out here, on the edge of the habitable zone, things didn't just fall from the sky without reason. When he reached the site, the wreckage looked like a broken dagger stabbed into the earth. Sharp black hull, humming with residual energy. Alien, for sure. But what caught his eye wasn't the ship. It was the figure crawling out of it. She was small, dazed, bleeding from a head wound, and wearing a flight suit far too advanced for anyone from Earth. Dax didn't hesitate. He ran toward her, kicked off debris, and lifted her out. She groaned, barely conscious, clutching a strange-looking cube in her hand. "Easy," he said. "You're safe. Well, safer than a minute ago." Her eyes flickered open deep violet, like starlight soaked in midnight. She tried to speak, but her voice caught. Did the beacon? He shook his head. "You're lucky I was the only one who picked up your crash. Nobody else in range." Her head fell back. That might be a problem. Dax didn't ask questions. He carried her to his rover, laid her on the passenger bench, and hit the accelerator. Whoever she was, wherever she was from, someone was probably coming after her, and not in a friendly way. He drove straight back to his outpost, a rusted dome with mismatched solar panels and a half-functioning AI assistant named Lucy. He laid the girl on his cot and told Lucy to start a medical scan. She didn't stir again until night fell. When she did, she sat bolt upright, eyes scanning the room like she expected weapons. "You're not a bounty hunter?" she asked sharply. Dax raised an eyebrow. "Do I look like I've caught anything more dangerous than a cold lately?" She blinked. "You helped me." He shrugged. "Saw a crash, saw someone alive in it. Felt like the right thing to do." She stared at him for a long time, like no one had ever said that to her before. "My name is Arya," she said finally. "Pilot first class of the..." She stopped herself. "Just Arya." Dax didn't push. "Nice to meet you, Arya. I'm Dax. Welcome to the edge of nowhere." The cube she clutched vibrated faintly. She glanced at it, then tucked it under her jacket. "You're not safe, Dax." He laughed dryly. "Yeah, I got that impression. Want to tell me who's coming?" She hesitated, then slowly said, "They'll look for the wreck. But if they trace the trail here, you in trouble? Not just me. Everyone." Outside, the wind picked up, scattering sand across the solar panels. Lucy beeped a soft warning about approaching dust storms. Dax sighed. "Well, if they're coming, they'll have to get through a half-broken radar fence. 2 worn-out sentry bots, and 1 very determined ex-soldier." Arya tilted her head. "You'd fight for me. You're in my home. That makes you my responsibility." She looked like she didn't understand the word home in the way he said it. Something about that broke his heart a little. "I should go," she whispered. "You can barely stand." "You're staying until you can." A long silence. Passed then, softly. "You don't know who I am. Do I need to?" She stared at him, as if trying to decide whether that was foolish or profound. Then, almost in awe, she said, "You're very human." He chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." Outside, thunder rolled artificial, not natural. Engines. Dax looked toward the horizon. "They're coming, aren't they?" Arya nodded. "And they'll burn this place to ash to find me." Dax grabbed his jacket and reached under the cot for an old plasma rifle. "Then let's give them a reason to regret it." The hum in the air wasn't wind. It was the sound of an engine slowing in the upper atmosphere. Dax stepped out of his outpost into the night, gripping his plasma rifle, eyes narrowed toward the sky. He could see the faint shimmer of something. Descending, no lights, no transponder. Stealth Tech. Arya stood beside him, silent, her violet eyes scanning the horizon like she could feel the shape of the ship. She clutched the cube tighter, its glow hidden beneath her coat. They found the wreck, she said. Fast. They're fast when it matters. That means they know what was on board. Or who. Dax looked at her. You want to tell me now who you really are? She didn't meet his eyes. If I told you, you might not help me anymore. He gave a short laugh. Too late. I already upgraded you from guest to co-defender of this very expensive shack. She glanced at the rusted walls, the crooked antenna, the barrel holding up a solar panel. Expensive. In emotional value, he said. I built this place myself. She was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, I'm not just a pilot. I'm Arya Valen, last daughter of the House of Valen, crowned princess of the Cerelian Empire. Dax blinked. Well, hell. She waited for him to back away. Instead, he scratched his jaw. I knew it. Those boots were way too clean for a crash survivor. You're not angry. I'm too tired for angry. You're telling me you're royalty and someone wants you dead. Several people, she said. The Empire's been overthrown. My family? They're all gone. He looked back up, at the sky, and those ships. Loyalists to the new regime. They want what I carry. She showed him the cube. It shimmered faintly, a quiet pulse like a heartbeat. This contains the genetic registry of my people. Lineages, laws, treaties, everything that proved the Empire was legitimate. If they destroy it, history gets rewritten by whoever shouts the loudest. Dax whistled low. That's a hell of a USB stick. It's more than data, she said. It's identity. Proof we existed. If it's gone, I become a rumor. He nodded slowly. Okay, I'm in. You still want to help me. Arya, you could be a cosmic broccoli salesman, and I'd still help you if someone was trying to kill you. Her laugh was small, but real. You're very strange. You crashed into the right outpost. Overhead, a sleek black vessel dropped. Lower, disturbing the air with a silent pressure that made Dax's bones hum. It had no markings, no lights, just menace in machine form. All right, he said, stepping back inside. I've got one sentry drone and a battery pack older than the law of gravity. But I've also got a plan. She followed him in. I'm listening. He tossed her a welding mask and opened a panel in the floor. We give them something to chase that isn't you. He jammed an old memory core into a hover crate, slapped the welding mask on top, and ran a power loop from the core into the walls. They'll scan for heat and life signs. We'll give them both right here, inside a crate of junk. Arya raised an eyebrow. You're tricking them with garbage. High-tech garbage. You got any better ideas, Your Highness? She shook her head. Just don't call me that again. Deal? Now come on, help me set up the decoy. Then we head underground. Together, they worked in silence, sparks flying as wires connected and systems rebooted. She was fast, precise with her tools, and her knowledge of tech was frightening. You ever think about building a resistance? He asked. I used to think about surviving one more day. He didn't say anything after that. When the decoy was ready, Dax led her to a tunnel below the outpost, a collapsed mining shaft with a manual lock that hadn't seen light in years. The air was cold. Dust clung to every surface. They ducked inside just as the ship overhead landed. The ground shook. Dax placed a finger to his lips. They heard it. Boots, not marching, stalking. 3 soldiers in black armor entered the outpost. Above, their helmets hissed as they scanned the room. One stepped toward the crate. The decoy blinked. A sharp alarm chirped from his scanner. Target acquired, one of them said. Prepare for extraction. They took the bait. Dax and Arya waited until the engines roared again, until the air cleared of the sound of war. He turned to her, grinning. Well, she stared at him, amazed. You just fooled a death squad with a broken toaster and some clever wiring. He shrugged. Human ingenuity. Get used to it. The shaft stretched deep beneath the desert floor, lined with broken rails and old light fixtures that hadn't flickered on in decades. Dax walked ahead, his flashlight cutting a narrow path through the dark. Arya followed closely, one hand on the wall, the other gripping the cube tightly. After nearly an hour of silent walking, they reached a cavern wide enough to hold a shuttle. Stalactites hung like frozen teeth from the ceiling. An old mining platform stood in the center, half buried under sand and metal debris. "This is where I used to store contraband," Dax said, brushing dust off a console. "Turns out no one ever checks abandoned mines on forgotten planets." Arya looked around. "They might now, which is why we need to move again. But first, I want to know what else that cube does." She hesitated. "It's encoded to my bloodline. I can open part of it, but if I unlock the full registry, it sends a signal." "To who?" "To anyone who still remembers my family, or anyone trying to erase them." She nodded. Dax set down his pack and crouched beside her. "Show me." Arya placed the cube on the floor. It levitated slightly, then hummed with a warm light. A projection unfolded in the air, holographic threads of information dancing like golden constellations. Dax stared in awe as faces appeared, names in a language he couldn't read, planets marked by small glowing orbs. "This is my people," Arya whispered. "Our memory, our truth." He watched her expression. There was pain in her eyes, but also pride. She wasn't just running, she was carrying a legacy. Suddenly, the cube flickered. A sharp pulse of light snapped through the air like static. Arya grabbed it, eyes wide. They pinged it. "Someone's listening." "You didn't unlock the whole thing, right?" "No, but the moment I accessed the archive, a security node woke up. It's reaching out for confirmation, or orders." Dax swore and stood. "We can't stay here. Not now." Arya's voice dropped to a whisper. "There's something else." "What?" "The cube contains a map." He turned back. "To what?" "A failsafe. My ancestors knew that if the Empire ever fell, there needed to be a place where the truth couldn't be erased. A vault, hidden in space. It's real." Dax narrowed his eyes. "Let me guess, it's also where they're headed next." She nodded. "If the signal bounced, the Apex regime will trace it. I have to get there before they do." He checked his scanner. "We need a ship then. Mine won't leave orbit. The jump core's fried." "I know someone," Arya said reluctantly. "But he won't be happy to see me. That makes two of us." They packed quickly. As they climbed out of the shafts, the wind had shifted. The stars above now pulsed faintly, like the universe had started breathing heavier. Dax paused at the ridge, staring at a flash of light in the distance. "They're scanning again." "We still have time," Arya said. "But not much." He glanced sideways at her. "You trust this contact of yours?" "No." "Great." They slid down the ridge, boots kicking sand, and reached the old rover. Dax hotwired the ignition with practiced ease and gunned the engine. The vehicle groaned like it was protesting, but moved as they drove. Arya looked out the window, her voice soft. "When I was little, they told me stories about Earth, the birthplace of humanity. I never believed humans could be kind without expecting something in return." Dax shrugged. "Some of us aren't smart enough to make demands." "No," she said. "Some of you are just human." They drove in silence for miles. Ahead, on the edge of the rocky cliffs, lights blinked, 3 towers and a landing pad, half buried in sand. "An old smuggler's haven. That your guy?" Dax asked. "Unfortunately." He pulled up just shy of the perimeter and reached for his rifle. "If things go bad, they won't." Famous last words. Arya stepped out first, hands raised. A spotlight snapped on, blinding them. A voice boomed from a speaker. "Princess Arya Valen, you have some nerve coming here. I have credits, and a cause. You also have a bounty. Dax stood behind her, rifle at the ready. Let's hope credits talk louder than bullets. The door slid open. Arya turned to him and whispered, "Stay close. This man helped smuggle diplomats once, but trust isn't part of the deal." They walked inside together, unaware that above them, in high orbit, a silent ship had just locked onto the cube's last transmission and begun its descent. The interior of the smuggler's outpost was dim and musty, built from scrap and silence. It smelled like rust, plasma grease, and secrets that had never quite died. Arya led the way through a winding corridor, past flickering lights and flickering glances from mercs, who clearly didn't expect to see her alive, let alone walking in of her own free will. At the far end of the hall stood a wide chamber with a half-circle desk made of salvaged ship plating. Behind it lounged a man whose grin was too sharp and whose coat looked too expensive for this dusty corner of the galaxy. "Arya," he said, rising slowly, "you look like someone crashed a royal shuttle through a meteor storm. Twice. 3 times, she replied. "The last one wasn't my fault." His smile widened. "Didn't think I'd see you again. After what happened on Sorellis, that wasn't me." "That's what the bounty notice said, too." Dax stepped forward, not bothering with diplomacy. "We need a ship." The smuggler glanced at him, with amused disdain. "And who's this? The new bodyguard? You trade down, princess." "I'm not here to trade insults," Arya said flatly. "We need a jump-capable vessel. One that won't be noticed by the wrong people." "You mean, the ones following the scent of royal blood and misplaced hope?" Dax's hand drifted toward his rifle. The smuggler raised his hands. "Relax. I didn't say no, just wanted to enjoy the reunion. You always did bring drama wherever you went." He walked over to a wall panel and tapped in a code. A hidden door hissed open, revealing a hangar, dusty, underpowered, but still housing a sleek stealth ship with narrow wings and no registration marks. "Modified stealth corvette," he said proudly. "Warp coil is tuned for deep system jumps, cloaked in half the known spectra. Doesn't have a name, but she flies like a whisper in a thunderstorm." Arya looked at it, then at him. "What's the price?" He shrugged. "The cube. No deal. It's just data. It's everything." Dax stepped between them. She said no. "Try another offer." The smuggler's eyes narrowed. "You know what it's worth? I know what you're not going to get." For a moment, the room tensed. Mercs nearby shifted their weight. One of them unclipped a holster, then the smuggler sighed and waved them down. "Fine," he said. "Not the cube. But I want something else." "What?" He pointed at Arya. "A truth. Something only the last princess of Sorelia would know." Arya paused, then said, "The Empire had a backup encryption node on Trion 9, buried under the ruins of the Listening Tower." His eyebrows lifted. "That's a good one." He turned to a console, typed something, and after a few seconds, nodded. Verified. That wasn't in any of the leaked intel. He stepped back, gesturing toward the ship. "She's yours. Fuel's low, but enough to get you off-world." Arya blinked. "Just like that? I'm not a monster, Arya. I just like to keep the scale balanced. You owe me now." "I already did. You owe me again." She nodded once. They prepped the ship fast. Dax ran diagnostics while Arya linked the cube to the nav system. She programmed coordinates from the cube, an obscure system with no name, no trade routes, nothing that should have drawn attention. "Is this where the vault is?" he asked. "It's where the next piece is." He looked at her. "There's more than one cube." She hesitated, then nodded. 7 were created, 1 for each member of the Royal Council. They thought if everything collapsed, the pieces should never be in one place. Dax sat back. "So we're going treasure hunting across the galaxy, while an Empire's ghost hunts us down. Not treasure, memory, and maybe hope." The smuggler stood by the bay doors as they powered up the engines. "One last thing," he said. "If anyone asks, Psy never saw you." Dax gave a mock salute. "Never heard of you either." The ship lifted, hovering on quiet thrusters, then angled skyward. The bay doors opened, dust swirled. Stars beckoned as they broke through the atmosphere. Arya looked out at the dark beyond. "They'll follow us," she said. Dax sat in the pilot's chair. "Then let's make the chase interesting." Just as the stars stretched into lines and the jump drive engaged, a message flashed on the outer sensor array. "Incoming transmission. Unknown source." Dax glanced at Arya. "We expecting mail?" She shook her head. He opened the message. It was a voice. Digital, but not robotic. Cold. Smooth. "You can't run from history. The Apex remembers everything." Then silence. Dax gritted his teeth. "I hate being watched." Arya placed a hand on the cube, its light warm against her palm. "Then let's give them something worth watching." The stars swallowed them whole. The jump ended with a jolt, the stars snapping back into pinpricks as the ship coasted into a dead system. No planets, no moons, no light, just darkness and the distant glow of a dying red dwarf in the far corner of space. Dax checked the readings. Coordinates say we're here, but here looks like nowhere. Arya sat beside him, staring out the viewport. "It's not nowhere. It's erased. This system was once part of the old Coreward trade route. Then one day, every chart said it didn't exist. Someone made a whole system disappear. Not someone. The Apex." Dax whistled. "Okay. They don't mess around." Arya tapped the cube. Its soft light pulsed, then flared as a beacon activated. A thin line of blue energy projected forward into space, aiming toward nothing. "Follow that," she said. He turned the ship, following the beam. After 5 silent minutes, something shimmered into view. It didn't appear so much as decide to be seen. A small station, shaped like a spiral shell, hidden inside a cloaking field. No lights, no signals, just silence and memory. Dax angled the ship toward a docking port. "You sure this isn't a trap?" "If it is," she said, "it's a very old one." They docked. The hatch hissed open into pitch-black air, stale and heavy. Dax led the way, rifle in hand, flashlight sweeping. The corridor. Dust floated in zero gravity. The walls were marked with faded symbol Cerealian, ancient dialect. "Looks abandoned," he said. "Looks like it remembers us," Arya whispered. The cube pulsed again. Doors unlocked with soft clicks. Lights flickered on in sequence as they moved deeper into the station. They reached a chamber with a domed ceiling and an altar in the center. On the altar lay a second cube, larger, darker, and humming with a deep energy that made the air thrum. Arya stepped forward. "Reverend, this is the second vault key," she said. "It holds the histories of the planetary archives, law, science. Everything erased when the Apex rewrote the star maps." Dax approached slowly. "We just take it. It was meant for someone like me, but it won't activate without my signature." She placed her hand on it. A pulse of light rippled through the room. The walls bloomed with holograms, planets spinning, civilizations rebuilding, data flowing like light. Dax's eyes widened. "It's beautiful. It's truth." Then the lights dimmed. A cold pressure slammed through the station. Intrusion detected. A voice echoed from the walls. Not Apex. Not machine. Something older. "What the hell was that?" Dax whispered. Arya's brow furrowed. A failsafe. This vault wasn't just hidden, it was guarded. One of the holograms shifted, becoming a figure. Vague, translucent. A woman with long robes and a crown of stars. She looked at Arya, her eyes sharp and sad. "You carry the blood of the broken line. You awaken memory." Arya stepped closer. "I seek restoration. Restoration is resistance." Resistance will draw the enemy. I know. The figure paused. Bennett said, then take this burden with open eyes. The second cube rose into the air and floated toward Arya as she touched it. Both cubes flared and then fused, interlocking like puzzle pieces. A new projection spun into view a map. 3 more keys, Arya said, breathless. This is the path. Dax leaned over. That third system looks damaged. It's fragmented, she said. We'll need to rebuild parts of it manually. A shriek cut through the station. Not human. Not mechanical. The apex. Dax spun toward the sound. How did they get here so fast? They've been following the echoes, Arya said. We stayed too long. The walls trembled. Lights flickered. Shadows moved beyond the corridor. Let's go, Dax growled, grabbing her arm. They ran, feet slamming against the cold floor, shadows chasing them like memories that refused to stay buried. The station shook again, a distant thud, like someone hammering on the skin of reality. They dove into the ship, sealed the hatch, and disengaged the clamps. Dax slammed the thrusters and pulled them free of the docking port as the station behind them began to unravel, ripped apart by a force unseen but undeniably hostile. From the rear camera, they saw Ita's shape, vast and wrong, phasing in and out of normal space, like a creature from an unfinished thought. It wasn't a ship. It was an idea of erasure made real. That's Apex tech, Arya said, voice trembling. But augmented by what? She didn't answer. Instead, she activated the fused cube. A wave of encrypted signals scattered into deep space. What are you doing? Dax asked, calling the others. You said no one survived. I said I hoped someone did. Outside, the thing watching them paused, then it turned and followed. The final jump took them beyond mapped space. The Archive Guardians had given coordinates that didn't exist on any current star chart. The ship trembled as they exited the jump, less from turbulence and more from something deeper. The stars here looked wrong, bent, as if space itself didn't trust what it remembered. Before them floated a shattered world, a planet cracked in half, its core glowing faintly, surrounded by silent debris. Hovering above it was the final vault, sealed inside a fortress of light and metal that pulsed like a beating heart. Dax stared through the viewport. That thing. It's not built like anything I've ever seen. It wasn't, Arya said, softly. This vault wasn't just a safeguard. It was a weapon of memory, a countermeasure. To what? To forgetting. As they approached, the ship's systems dimmed. Not in power, but in purpose. Lights flickered, screens showed old images. Dax's rifle flashed back to its factory imprint. Even the walls seemed to remember a version of themselves that no longer existed. The vault is pulling memory out of everything, Dax said. It's rewriting the present. No, Arya whispered. It's reminding it. They docked with the fortress. The interior was impossible, long halls that looped without bending, rooms that echoed with voices they hadn't spoken. Memories that weren't theirs. Dax touched a wall and saw his childhood, his first mission, his first lost friend. He pulled his hand back like it had burned. I don't like this place. It's not meant to be liked. It's meant to be understood. They reached the central chamber. At its core was the last cube, massive, crystalline, spinning in place. As they stepped closer, a barrier of light rose, stopping them. Then a voice spoke. Not mechanical, not digital, human. Name your truth. Arya stepped forward. I am Arya Valen, last of my line. I carry the memory of my people, and I choose to remember. The light shifted. Name your witness. She turned to Dax. He hesitated, then stepped forward. I'm Dax Morin, human, soldier, and I choose to stand with her. The barrier dissolved. The cube lowered slowly. Arya placed her fused registry into the cradle below it. The vault came alive. Light surged across the chamber. Images flooded the air, cities that no longer stood. Leaders erased from history, entire star systems brought back in color and sound. The final piece locked into place, and then the vault pulsed in broadcast. Across the galaxy, hidden receivers lit up. Ancient satellites blinked to life. Forgotten databanks unfolded like flowers. The truth, long buried, erupted back into the world, like fire through dry grass. In the Apex capital, systems crashed under the flood, records rewritten, propaganda overwritten, hidden atrocities exposed in perfect clarity. But with the transmission came a reaction. Apex ships converged on the vault, dozens of them. Dax stared at the display. We just painted the biggest target in the galaxy on ourselves. Good, Arya said. Let them come. Sorrel's voice crackled through the comms. Reinforcements inbound. You've got half the resistance fleet behind you. Just hold. Outside, the stars ignited with light. Resistance ships warped in, battered, but determined. Fighters and frigates, veterans and rebels, humans and aliens. For the first time in a generation, the Forgotten rose. Dax looked to Arya. You ready to finish this? She stared at the glowing cube. I didn't come to win a war. I came to remind the galaxy of who we are. He smiled. That's close. Enough. The battle raged. Apex forces unleashed silence, trying to delete the signal again. But it was too late. The vault had already spread in every corner of the galaxy. People remembered not just Cerelians, not just humans, everyone, who they were before the Apex, who they could be again. Inside the command chamber, the vault pulsed one last time. A message carved itself into the walls in every language. What is remembered lives? Dax stood beside Arya as the Apex fleet began to retreat, fractured by internal collapse and external fire. They'll rebuild, he said. Then so will we. The vault faded behind them, sealed again, not to hide, but to rest, its purpose fulfilled. Back aboard their ship, as they drifted through space, Arya leaned her head on Dax's shoulder. You saved me when I was just a name on a shattered registry. He smiled. You made that name mean something again. Above them, stars shined clearer than they ever had. Not because they were new, but because someone finally remembered they were there.